I've spent the last 15 years working with over 100 CEOs and C-suite executives, helping them transform from reactive leaders into masters of authentic power. And what I discovered will completely change how you think about leadership. The thing that separates great leaders from good ones has nothing to do with some business strategy hack or some management technique that will magically transform your team overnight. As much as I would like to sit here and say that, and trust me, that would make what I do way easier, it's just not the reality. The reality is, to become a truly great leader, you need some fundamentals in place, which most executives that I talk to just don't have. So in this video, I'm going to take you through those fundamentals, plus every piece of leadership wisdom I know, so that you, by the end of this video, you have everything you need to transform from a stressed reactive leader into someone who leads from authentic power and inner mastery. The first fundamental is by far the most critical and yet also the most avoided by successful executives: inner peace mastery. Most leaders think inner peace is some fluffy spiritual concept that has no place in the boardroom. They either deny the depth of their stress patterns or delegate them away, or at least try. The mistake they're making is reducing stress management to sleep, gym, or some meditation app. Those help, but they just treat the symptoms. The real issue is chronic dysregulation, repeated sympathetic arousal that never lands. Leaders assume willpower or grit will override it, which only exhausts resources faster. I had a CEO client running a $50 million manufacturing company. He was working 80-hour weeks, hadn't slept properly in years, and his leadership team was walking on eggshells around his volatility. His cortisol levels remained high, he burnt through teams, and his nights were sleepless. We mapped his stress loops, replaced one evening email habit with a 12-minute vagal reset routine, and embedded micro-regulation practices during the day. Within 6 weeks, his decision clarity improved. He slept through the night, and board meetings felt less theatrical and more strategic. Regulation widens the window of tolerance. Practically, that means shorter reaction times to crisis without panic, greater capacity for complex thought under pressure, and the ability to hold paradox. When your nervous system is your ally, you act from presence instead of panic. Your team mirrors that calm. You make clearer decisions because your nervous system isn't hijacked by the fight or flight response. Your team actually wants to bring you problems instead of hiding them because they know you won't explode. Start with polyvagal informed practices. 2 to 3 minute paced breathing. In 4, out 6 before every meeting. Heartbeat coherence breathing for 2 minutes after triggering emails. Somatic titration after difficult conversations. So name the sensation, orient to the ground, and allow for a full exhalation. Pair these with state shifts. So a physical anchor, like pressing the thumb and forefinger together, linked to a regulated state you practice daily. Add a weekly 20-minute embodiment session. Slow movement, breathe, felt sense check-in, and that'll rebuild baseline regulation. Relaxation feels unsafe when parts of you equate rest with vulnerability, weakness, or loss of control. Success often trains the nervous system to perform to be safe. The paradox is that true safety comes from presence, not performance. But after addressing the nervous system, there's one aspect of leadership that executives completely neglect, thinking it's soft, when in reality, it's what separates good leaders from legendary leaders. Authentic power development. Most executives confuse power with control and dominance with strength. People assume power equals visibility, control, or influence over others. That is ego control. It works short term, but creates brittle relationship and culture. True power comes from inner alignment, consistency between values, embodied presence, and action. Authentic power holds contradiction, admits limits, and still moves decisively. They're leading from their wounded ego, trying to prove themselves instead of serving from a place of genuine confidence. A regional VP I worked with commanded attention through bravado and rapid decisions. When a crisis hit, his team split and he lost trust. Contrast that with a senior VP who consistently acknowledged uncertainty, then set clear boundaries and actions. The senior VP's team rallied because they trusted the person behind the role. Same competence, different source of power. Authentic power creates magnetic fellowship. It allows you to hold accountability without aggression and to invite dissent without losing authority. Teams become more resilient, innovation increases, and your presence reduces the need for oversight. You stop needing to be right all the time. You can admit when you don't know something without it threatening your authority. Your confidence becomes unshakable because it's rooted in self-knowledge, not external validation. Use 3 litmus tests. Are your choices sourced in values or image? Do you need others' approval to act? Can you stay steady when criticized? Build daily rituals that reconnect you to values. Morning boundary setting, midday felt sense check, evening acknowledgement of one choice that aligned with values. Communicate from limits and clarity, not from performance. Practice small acts of truth-telling to yourself and others. Build a failure ritual, a brief non-judgmental review after mistakes that extracts learning and recenters intention. Use exposure to vulnerability in low-stakes settings so your tolerance expands. Over time, you replace conditional confidence with confidence as practice. By the way, if you do want some help implementing some of the stuff in this video, you can click the first link in the description to book a clarity call with us to explore working together. This next principle I'm about to share with you is perhaps the most uncomfortable topic for executives. And yet, it's the one that creates the most profound leadership transformation: shadow integration work. Most leaders treat blind spots like tactical errors you can fix with coaching, training, or tough hiring decisions. They're either denying the depth of those blind spots or they delegate them away out of consciousness. The mistake is believing blind spots are external performance issues when they are indeed internal emotional patterns, unprocessed shame, projection, or disowned needs that drive behavior in high-stakes moments. I worked with a CFO who couldn't delegate anything. On the surface, it looked like perfectionism. But when we dug deeper, we found childhood patterns around control and safety that were now strangling his organization's growth. A CEO I worked with repeatedly undermined senior women in his team by micromanaging their projects. On paper, it looked supportive. In practice, he kept checking in until they underperformed. He genuinely thought he was protecting the outcome. In coaching, we found a pattern from his upbringing that he associated with vulnerability. He associated vulnerability with chaos. His micromanaging was a fear disguised as care. When you reclaim exiled parts of yourself, you stop handing power to them unconsciously. You go from reactive to consciously responsive. That unlocks authenticity, steadier relationships with direct reports, and far better decision quality under pressure, because fewer hidden triggers hijack your attention. Organizational complexity amplifies projection. When stakes are high, the team will mirror your avoided material back to you. The faster you own that, the less organizational energy is wasted on reactivity, political games, and compliance. Start with timed reflection. After any strong reaction, be it shame, anger, avoidance, ask, what part of me just showed up? Name it. Feel where it lives in your body. Give it one sentence of compassionate curiosity. No fixing. Then invite that part to speak its purpose. Keep a reaction log. Run brief active imagination dialogues for 10 minutes weekly and practice shadow retrieval work. By re-owning one disowned trait per month, allow the angry part to voice its protective logic in a safe setting. Over time, you'll notice those triggers soften and your authority becomes steadier. Mastery of shadow integration is the difference between leaders who survive turbulence and leaders who transform systems. But there's something even more insidious affecting every C-suite leader that nobody talks about, and it's slowly destroying the decision-making capacity. Leadership loneliness crisis. Most executives try to tough it out alone, thinking vulnerability is weakness. They create walls around themselves, and then they wonder why they feel isolated and their teams feel disconnected. The loneliness at the top is real, but most leaders handle it by building higher walls instead of creating genuine connection. They think their psychological blind spots don't affect their leadership. The loneliness compounds decision fatigue. When you're making decisions in a vacuum, without trusted advisors who can challenge your thinking, you start second-guessing everything. Your team can feel your scattered energy and disconnection, and it makes everyone anxious. The isolation at the top is real, and it affects the quality of your decision-making in ways you don't even realize. Addressing leadership loneliness builds deeper trust with your team. Decision-making becomes collaborative rather than isolating. You model the kind of authentic leadership that people actually want to follow. When leaders create psychological safety for themselves, it cascades throughout the organization. You build deeper trust with your team because they see you as human, not just a role. Your team feels safe to be creative and take risks because you're not projecting your unprocessed isolation onto them. Create one relationship, whether it's with a coach, mentor, or a trusted advisor, where you can drop the executive armor and be completely honest about your struggles. Start with small acts of truth-telling about your limits and uncertainties in low-stakes, safe settings. This builds your tolerance for vulnerability so you can maintain connection even under pressure. Build systems for regular check-ins with people who can challenge your thinking without it threatening your authority. This final principle is what separates reactive managers from truly embodied leaders, and most executives have never even heard of it. Embodied presence. Most leaders are always in their heads, planning the next move, fighting the last battle. They're physically present, but energetically scattered across 12 different concerns. They assume presence is just showing up when it's actually about full nervous system availability. What most leaders get wrong about presence is treating it like a performance rather than a practice. I had a CEO who couldn't sit through a meeting without his mind racing to the next crisis. His team could feel his scattered energy and it was making everyone anxious. When we worked on embodied presence practices, feeling his body during conversations, returning to the breath when his mind started spinning, meetings become more productive because people can actually feel you listening. Your mere presence starts to calm chaos instead of creating it. When you're fully present, you can hold complexity and paradox without needing to immediately solve or fix. You become a stabilizing force in your organization rather than a source of anxiety. Practice feeling your body during conversations. Notice when your mind starts spinning future scenarios or replaying past events, and gently return to the sensation of being in your body, in this moment. Add a weekly 20-minute embodiment session, slow movement, breathe, felt sense check-in to rebuild baseline regulation. Use state shifts, physical anchor, linked to presence that you practice daily. Start each meeting with 30 seconds of conscious breathing, where you actually arrive in your body before engaging with others. So that's exactly how you become a truly great leader, through mastery of being. But there's something that I didn't tell you at the start of the video. Everything that I just told you is completely useless if you don't know how to develop unshakable confidence as a leader. Click on this video if you want to learn how to become a confident leader who commands respect naturally. I'll see you in the next one.